Hello everyone, this is a recording following the public information meeting which was held on May 28th, 2026. My name is Perry Bowman and I am the planner assigned to this application. This application is in relation to a land use bylaw map amendment or rezoning of 2796 Highway 1 in Aylesford. This is the land use bylaw map amendment process. It starts with the municipality receiving a completed application. Following that, we hold a public information meeting as our first point of contact with the community to receive any thoughts, concerns, or feedback on the application. I then undertake a staff review, which includes referring the application to bodies with jurisdiction and requesting comments from them. Following the receiving of those comments, I draft a recommendation assessment report, which is then presented to the Planning Advisory Committee. The Planning Advisory Committee will then vote on what recommendation to forward through to full municipal council at first reading. At first reading, full municipal council will vote on whether to proceed with the application through to a public hearing. If a public hearing is authorised, it will be held at the following month's prior to the following month's council meeting, and that is the point where the public can speak directly to full municipal council prior to them making a decision. The Planning Advisory Committee meetings, first reading, public hearing, and second reading are all public meetings which the public can attend, but generally comments are heard at the end of those meetings, whereas the public hearing, the public have the opportunity to speak directly to council. So following the decision made at second reading, there is a 14-day appeal period where either, depending on the decision made by council, either the applicant or affected parties have the opportunity to appeal the decision. So in terms of the proposal, the applicant has applied to rezone a 1.1 acre section of 2796 Highway 1 from the mixed commercial residential C3 zone to the general commercial C1 zone to permit the expansion of an existing heavy equipment facility, which is the existing Nova International heavy equipment facility directly to the west of the subject site. For reference, a heavy equipment facility means, under the land use bylaw, land, a building, or a portion of a building used to sell, lease, rent, service, or repair heavy equipment or heavy equipment parts, including trucks, airplanes, construction machinery, forestry equipment, agricultural equipment, and related machinery. So this is a map of the County of Kings with the red circle indicating the approximate location of the subject site within the village of Aylesford. So this is an image of the subject site. The whole of the subject site is outlined in red, whereas the portion proposed to be rezoned is outlined in yellow. The whole of the subject site is 2.67 acres in area, whereas the portion proposed to be rezoned is 1.1 acres in area. As we can see, the subject site is somewhat irregular in shape and does extend around the rear of the existing Nova International site to the west. The subject property has 165 feet of street frontage and sits on the southern side of Highway 1. The dwelling and garage that are currently located on the subject site are proposed to be relocated so that the site will effectively be clear. At this point in time, the rear of the subject site is heavily vegetated and is in proximity to the Annapolis River but does not directly abut it. The properties directly to the east of the subject site is vacant. Further to the east, this property contains a dwelling and then various outbuildings. The property across the road to the east, to the northeast, is also vacant, and then directly to the north, it contains self-storage and a number of businesses, which include the Old Hickory buildings of Berwick and shipping container manufacturers. And then to the west, we have the existing Nova International store. So this is a zoning map of the area. The subject site, as we can see, is covered by two different zones. In the green color is the mixed commercial residential C3 zone. And then at the rear of the subject site in the bluey color is the environmental constraints O1 zone. So directly to the east, we have more land that's also in the mixed commercial residential C3 zone. We also have one property slightly further down Highway 1 to the east, which is again in the general commercial zone. We also have a piece of land in the top right-hand corner, which is in the Neighbourhood Comprehensive Development Zone. And then to the west, we have land which is in the general commercial C1 zone. So this is a future land use designation map. Our land use designations outline what zone the land can be zoned, and if changes are proposed, what those changes can be. So the front portion of the subject site is located within the commercial designation, as are all the other properties in red. And then the rear portion is in the residential designation, which is the yellow colour. So the municipal planning strategy states that the general commercial zone is permitted within the commercial designation, meaning that as long as all other policy components are met, this application for rezoning is not prohibited. So this is a hypothetical map showing what the zoning of the area would look like in the event that this application is approved in its current form. So obviously the front portion of the subject site would be rezoned to the general commercial and would become the same zone as what is to the west and directly across the road to the north, whereas the remainder of the subject site to the rear would be retained as the environmental constraints O1 zone. So this is an image looking directly at the subject site, so we can see the dwelling and the garage which are proposed to be removed. So this is looking, I guess, westwards, where you can see the existing Nova International site. So they are proposing to expand their outdoor storage display commercial area into the subject site once the dwelling and garage are removed, if this rezoning is successful. So this is standing with the Nova International buildings to the rear of the photo, looking towards the subject site and the buildings to be removed. So this is the property directly to the east of the subject site, which is here on the right-hand side of the screen. We have vacant property, and then we have 2808 Highway 1, which is a residential dwelling. Again, this just kind of gives a broader scale look at what is surrounding. So we have the subject property on the right-hand side, vacant property, residential property, 2811 Highway 1 on the left-hand side of the screen, another vacant property in the foreground of this image here. And then this is the property directly to the north, which has the self-storage, the Old Hickory buildings of Berwick, and shipping container manufacturing, outdoor commercial sales. Okay, in terms of policy, the municipal planning strategy enables us to consider this application through policy 5.3.3, which states that council shall consider amendments to any one of the zoning maps of the land use bylaw, provided the application is for a specific development. In this case, that is the expansion of an existing heavy equipment facility, and is to rezone land to another zone enabled within the same designation. So as we saw on the future land use map, the general commercial C1 zone is permitted within the commercial designation. Further to this, Municipal Planning Strategy Policy 5.3.5 states the council shall consider in relation to all applications to rezone land. Point A, the applicable zone placement policies. Point B, the impact of both the specific development proposal and of other possible uses permitted in the same zone, or in the proposed zone, sorry, and the general criteria. So I will go through these on the next slides. But in regards to point A and the zone placement policy, that is set out in Municipal Planning Strategy Policy 3.2.2. So the zone placement policy says lands located in this zone are intended to accommodate a very wide range of commercial uses, as well as limited residential opportunities and low impact industrial developments along main transportation corridors. So this is what I need to consider when assessing whether the rezoning of the subject site to this, or to the general commercial C1 zone, is appropriate in this location. In regards to point B, which was considering the proposed use along with all other permitted uses, The general commercial C1 zone permits a larger array of commercial uses in comparison to the mixed commercial C3 zone, mixed commercial residential C3 zone. So as we can see under the C3 heading, there are a large number of residential uses permitted in pink, which would be lost if this rezoning was to be permitted. The land would gain the ability to be used for the uses in green. So please pause here if you would like to look through those. And then the final point was considering the general criteria. So I will note that the municipality is not always the body with jurisdiction when considering some of these criteria. So in these cases, we would send the application out to those bodies and ask for comments. So in this case, we would send the application out to the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works, the Aylesford Fire Chief, and the Nova Scotia Department of Environment. So as a planner, I need to consider if this proposal meets the intent of the municipal planning strategy. Does the proposal conflict with any municipal or provincial programs, bylaws, or regulations? Is there any financial impact to the municipality? Are there any land use compatibility issues? Is there the creation of traffic hazards or congestion? Is there adequate fire protection services and equipment available? Are there adequate sewer and water services available? In this case, that would be well water and septic. And is the potential for flooding or serious drainage problems? Are there negative impacts on neighbouring farming operations as a result of the proposal? And is the site generally suitable? So if anyone has any thoughts or comments, please feel free to get in touch with me. My phone number is 902-690-6150, or my email is pbowman@countyofkings.ca. Thank you very much for your time.